So what I want to do is, well, first off, you might have seen this event in the slideshow, and it's one of these events where you bring these speakers in, and they say really provocative things, and then people get worked up over it, and then they show up, and because they're worked up, or they protest, or they whatever the case is, and I just want to do a PSA really fast, actually. A PSA, public service announcement, okay? When freedom of movement or freedom of speech is curtailed in a society, it's almost always the people with the least amount of power that feel the greatest impact of the reduced freedoms that have been given out mostly begrudgingly by the people in power, that have been given out to the people. So I'm often struck by when I hear people who are purportedly or who are on the side of the powerless, who are calling for reductions in freedoms, and in particular freedom of speech for certain people. And I think it's so fascinating that almost across the board in my reading of history, it's the less powerful who are the most hurt. So keep that in mind for, those of you in this class, for example, who want to go out and protest an event like this, right? But we're actually going to start here. One of these guys purportedly in a video said this, which is, kind of like, okay, whatever. Which is what you do, right? I mean, you make money by being provocative, because you get people to click on your videos, and then you make money, and it's like, oh my God, all right, very good, right? So, but people get worked up, but that's a statement, right? And this statement here is one that, okay, it's extreme. I don't really understand it. I don't, but it's extreme, but yeah, so it's extreme, right? Okay, so the title of today's class is "What's the Problem?" And I want to actually start right here with transgender issues and what's the problem? So we're talking a lot about this today, in these days in the U.S., right? Transgender, transsexuality, trans this and trans that. It's like, what I want to do is I want to talk about what the problem is. We're going to start. This is going to be our first case study, and I will say I'm almost entirely 100%, as best as I can possibly be on this issue, just absolutely curious about what the issue is. What's the issue with people who are LGBT? What's the issue with people who are trans? Or who identify as trans, or genderqueer, or non-binary, or whatever. What's the issue? So what I'd like to do today is have y'all, as a class, I really want people to educate me as best you can, because I just have never, this is just one of those, like when you're being socialized and there are certain issues that you stumble over, and you kind of I'm not comfortable with people with disabilities, or I'm not comfortable with mental illness for some reason, or I'm not comfortable with any number of things, or being outside of my culture, or being around people that don't speak my language, or there could be any number of reasons that we would be uncomfortable. I've never in my life felt even a small, tiny bit of discomfort around LGBT and trans issues. It's just not for whatever reason. I'm uncomfortable about other things, but just not that. And so what I want to do is have some kind of a conversation that we can just talk about that, and maybe I just really want to understand what the problem. So again, what's the problem? Right? Why would anybody even make a statement like this? Like, so what's the problem? Right? It's sort of like me being annoyed at the fact that, you know, the wall is green and it's not blue. Like, okay, so what's the problem? So I'm just curious. So what I need, we're going to do a case study here, and what I'd like to have is a few volunteers, and I need really just 3 people. We can limit it to 3 people, but I need 3 people who identify as trans. If there's somebody in the class in particular who is either in the process of or who envisions that at some point in time you might think about transitioning M to F or F to M, I definitely, if you're comfortable, I'd really love to have you come up. But I'd really like to have 3 people who identify in some way as genderqueer or non-binary, or who both in terms of gender, but also in terms of biology. It'd be nice. I just want to have that conversation. So I know I have one. I know we have one volunteer, but I need. So you're going to volunteer, right, bro? Yeah, I know. I got you, but but you're on the spectrum of being open, of non-binary spectrum. Would you say non-binary? Oh, dude, it's even better. Okay, you do what you want. Awesome, man. That's even more awesome. Okay, is there anyone in class who would say I would do. Anyone? Because if I don't have a few people, then we can't do this. Then we're going to move on and do something else. Anybody in class? Dude, one. Okay, bro, why don't you come up? Why don't you come up? Yeah, because you do what you want, dude. That's even more awesome. You just do what you want. You don't have to identify. You could be like Jacob here, just do what you want. Anybody else? Wait, who's the woman from when we did dude, what were we in the beginning? Yeah, dude. Yo, what about you? What's that? What's that? You don't identify as non-binary, but you know what? Just come up okay, you're perfect. You don't, yeah. So first off, I'm going for somebody, dude, awesome, man. All right. Anybody else? Anyone else want to just be part of the conversation? All right, man. You can sit on the table. So let's start with. So I start with non-binary, gender, only because look, these things are here. I have 3 microphones. First off, what's your name?
My name is Mike.
Well, wait.
My name is Michael.
Michael.
Celeste.
So it's Celeste?
Celeste.
Yeah, when you were up here before, you never actually said your name.
You thought I was Pooch.
What's that?
Pooch? You said I looked like a Pooch because the other
Pooch.
person up here
Oh, yeah, all right.
is also a Pooch.
Did I say that?
Yes.
You did.
I don't remember saying that. All right, man.
I'm Jake.
Wait, hang on.
I'm Jake.
All right, so let's just go down. Like, how do you identify? Well, how do you identify? You're just doing what you feel like doing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really necessarily let societal standards of femininity and masculinity define what I do, but I'm just cis male.
Cis male.
Yeah.
So when you say you don't, we're gonna have a quick conversation. Okay, so there you go. Celeste.
Cis female.
Cis female, and we're gonna come back and say, first off, what's that mean to you? Cis male.
Cis male. I identify with the gender that I was born with, but I don't let that define what I look like or how I present myself.
Got you. Okay. So you identify it as a man.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I identify as a woman, and I was born a woman.
Okay. Yep.
I'm agender.
Agender?
Agender, not like a space gender, but like agender as one word.
Okay, like non-gender.
Yeah.
And so what does that mean for you?
For me, it means that like I don't identify with any sort of like any like gender on like it's on like the gender spectrum or binary. For me, it's more of like a choice of like. Obviously, I present it in a certain way, but that doesn't really define how I feel about myself, and I don't really have any sort of inclinations either way. So I just decide.
You don't have inclinations. Well, so when you say, so let's just start, let's go back. Hey, by the way, is there anyone else in class? We often get to this place, and is there anybody else in class who, at this point, is saying, yeah, I should probably, I should go up there. Anyone want to come up? Are we good? Okay, man. So when you say age, meaning you don't, not, when you say non-binary, can you explain what that means?
So, with current gender theory, there's a
Yeah, don't go too far into theory.
Okay.
Be like, you know.
there's a belief that gender is both on a spectrum that's a binary spectrum, and also like people who don't identify with that spectrum. So on the binary, it'd be male to female, and then people sometimes identify in between that somewhere, or more one way or the other. It's fine. And then there are people who don't identify with masculinity or femininity whatsoever, and they just decide to identify outside of that.
So outside of that, so that we think about boys, we're socializing children, boys and girls, and we think about, we oftentimes boys or girls, not boys and girls, right? Or boy girls or girl boys. It's just like, or something, anything in between. And so it just becomes, like, so the thing, remember the photo I had up of me on day one? When I'm dressed in pink overalls and I had a doll, and my parents were doing, like, they didn't know how progressive they were, right? I'm 1.5 years old, and they're just saying, whatever, we're pink, have dolls, it doesn't really matter. And so you're saying, well, the binary is, now either we're, boys and trucks or girls and dolls, one or the other, and you're saying the non-binary thing is like, no, there's actually a whole long list of things in between of ways you can be. Bro, when did you first start to say, you know what, so bro is good for you, right? Like bro, because you identify as a man.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fine.
So when did you first start to experiment by saying, you know what, I don't need to do this stuff. I'm going to wear polish on my finger, because I like polish, it's cool, man. I'm going to put it on my fingernails, or I'm going to wear earrings or whatever. How old were you?
I was really young, actually. I used to like put on black nail polish with like Halloween costumes, but then I wouldn't take it off for a while because I really like it. But like actually painting my nails and like leaving it on, I would say just the beginning of my senior year in high school.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. And then I started wearing like the big earrings a little bit after that.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. And different rings and stuff. So how were your friends when you started to push the boundaries a little bit?
My friends were very supportive. I would say like a lot of them like now encourage me to get like acrylics, like full blown, like
Go the whole distance?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How about people who were not supportive? What were they saying? Like how were they threatened? Were they threatened by you, or how, or what?
I wouldn't say necessarily threatened, but I think like I don't really know how to describe them other than like the really like hyper masculine guys in my school. Mm-hmm. You could kind of feel like just that air of tension. Like they were kind of uncomfortable around me. But
do you have any idea what made them uncomfortable?
I think I grew up in a majorly like white conservative town. So I think the fact that I was like bending the norm a little bit, they were like, "What are you doing?"
So maybe the issue is this could be part of what the problem is, right? If you're bending the norm, why aren't I bending the norm, right? Or maybe I could bend it too. So, oh my gosh, what does that mean for me, right? When I look in a mirror, so I look at you and you're doing this, it's like, well, I could do it too, and I have the freedom to do it, and like, oh my gosh, what is that about, right? Maybe.
Yeah, I just like, I started doing it because it felt right, and I just kept doing it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
But you identify as a man, and but you're attracted to women?
Men.
To men.
Yeah.
Okay, got you. All right. And your parents, how are they?
They're fine. My family at first was a little bit like, they'll accept me as being gay, but they don't want me to be very feminine. And then they had to get used to that because I started doing all of this.
Yeah, I got you. Cool. Dude. And it's just cool for you. You just seem so comfortable. I mean, when I saw you on day one, you're just you. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. All right. So how about you? When did you first start thinking I'm cisgender, I'm something other than just the binary, right? Woman or man. You know, I'm something other than what most people in society would expect for me to be. How about that?
I think that like started in college just because I went to a private Catholic high school, so I had like a uniform, so I couldn't really break those rules, so I'd have to like wear a skirt or a dress.
Wait, a girls' school or a boys' school?
It was co-ed.
Okay.
Or yeah. But I got to choose how I got to dress in college, so like being able to dress, I guess, in a more masculine way felt way more comfortable to me. And then I don't know, I really didn't have to question my gender, and that's like a cis privilege. Is like some people are on the spectrum, so that means some days they'll feel like more feminine or they'll feel more masculine, and like that's like gender fluidity. So I never really went through that, like because I'm comfortable, like I am a woman, but I do present masculine. But like that doesn't necessarily mean I'm a man, or I don't feel as though I am one.
Yep. And you're attracted to women?
I am, yes.
And have you always been attracted to women? I mean, has that ever been a question for you, or?
Yes, because that was all I was taught. So like representation has been something that I don't have. So when you grow up in a society where like men and women are like what you see as couples, and you don't see like queer couples anywhere, then you automatically like you have this like set expectation of who you're supposed to build a life with. So in my earlier years, I basically didn't know there was another option, and that's because like there's no like queer education of any type. So I really didn't think that could happen. But then once like I have like there are like gay characters in books and movies and stuff like that, and once I saw that, oh, like this is an option, like I was like, maybe this could be me. And then like I did my own research because there's no book on how to do it. And then like the whole like queer community itself has so many different facets that like there's so many different options and combinations of like sexualities and genders. Like there's no like right way to do it or a wrong way.
Exactly. Right. Yeah, exactly. Like, you know, it's just beyond comprehension. That's why all the terms and the ways of thinking, and even me asking questions, I'm like, I don't even know where to start, because what we have are three people who, all three of you are willing to say, look, there's a certain binary way of doing and thinking about this, and we're just actually going to kind of set that aside and do our own thing. And then once you start down that road, well, what are we talking about? Biology, culture, gender, moving, you know, like if you go back 50 years, we talk about like, take something like just being, like at Penn State University, my former neighbor who went to school here in the 60s, her thing, and she was a lesbian. She died now, but she was totally a lesbian. I mean, she never came out, ever, even to the end of her life, and she finally said, yeah, if I was young again, I would definitely be with a woman, but at her time, she just wasn't, right? And she spent her whole life never being with anybody. But when she was in school here, if you were a woman and you wore slacks, you were definitively considered to be gender queering. They didn't call it that, but you were considered to be a lesbian. Like you were being a man. You were dressing like a man. You were acting like a man, just like not like a woman, let's say, right? So it doesn't necessarily mean, but you were somewhere other than being heterosexual female just by wearing slacks. And then people would treat you like that, and it would go that way, and like, oh, okay. So there's a way in which these things also change with the times, you know. How were you when you first thought, hang on a minute, I'm not sure that this is my... Did you say that, or did I ask you that already?
So I was like 17, so like my senior year of high school.
17 is when you first said, whoa, I may not be with a guy, or I'm not attracted to guys?
Yeah, it was really late. Well, religion played a big part in that.
Yeah. That just seems kind of a little bit late, right? Would you say that?
Kind of, but then there are also like people who are 50 who are trying to like.
Oh,
figure
dude,
that
my
out
former
too.
neighbor was in her 60s when she was really just coming out.
So
You know
there's
what I
like
mean? So
never a too late type of thing.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
like there's like this saying like gender is fluid, so
Yep.
it changes throughout your life.
well, no, but I say that with you because because you're part of an organization on campus that's really active, right, on trans issues and so on, right? What's the name of the organization?
Cutie POC, which is queer and trans people of color.
Okay, queer and trans people of color. So you seem really comfortable. So you just seem like someone who probably would have been earlier than 17, been thinking about, you know what I mean, thinking more about but I don't know, you know, again, that's just in my head. Like I'm just going by the hundreds and hundreds of people. Okay, how about you, man? When did you first have the idea that, you know what, I think I'm not a straight man?
Well, the sexuality part came in a lot earlier. I was around 15. Honestly, I think I'd link it to my friends coming out as trans, and that made me start questioning like gender and sexuality as a whole, and then starting to realize that, hey, I might be somewhere in here. And and after
Wait, so your friend came out as trans?
yeah, 2 of them.
2? Mm-hmm. So F to M or M to F?
Both of them were FTM.
So F to M means female to male. And did they move forward with testosterone, with surgery, anything like that? Did they go that far?
Both of them
Already?
have started. One started fairly recently, actually.
Uh-huh. Okay, so that means now, so what happens with you is, here I got these 2 friends, they're actually saying, you know what, I feel like I'm actually not a woman, I'm a guy, and now that opens a whole palette of possibilities up, and what I'm hearing you say is, like, whoa, so I just actually entertain, well, what about me? Mm-hmm. Which most of us, some of you maybe are doing right now simply because we're having this conversation, but most people don't take the opportunity to ask that. Okay, so go ahead. So how old were you?
I was around 15, and
Okay.
that's when I first started questioning my sexuality. When it came to like my whole gender mess, that started later, like when I first started college. For me, that was more of like being agender, like I said, I don't really have any inclinations towards anything, and that sort of came from learning about different cultures, like Native Americans and their 2 spirits, and I think I forget where they're from, but the Aliha, which they're basically like transgender people from South America somewhere.
Yeah.
And from there, it was like I was thinking like this is something that exists in other cultures. This is something that I kind of identify with, not really identifying with anything. And although it's different because Aliha and Two-Spirit are different terms.
All right, so let me ask you a question, man. But you don't, so you say agender, meaning like non-gender. And when we talk about gender, y'all, we're talking about sociology. The things that we learn, the sociological sort of factors and forces that we apply to our bodies, which we divide between male and female, though many people are in between. And not only are many people in between, but we can change one to the other. And not only that, it's not just so clear what's male, female, right? Like, what is it? Like, what's it really mean? But nonetheless, gender is what we sort of, as a society, we start to apply to that people with these bodies, they dress and act and talk in this way, and people with these bodies dress and act and talk in this way. And, again, most cultures in the world actually have a third gender and a third sex. But you say you're agender, but do you ever do anything that would be more typically female?
I mean, I do dress in varying ways. I mean, for me, my gender expression has nothing to do with how I feel in terms of gender.
Yep, got you. So you could be so the fact that you and I are dressed very similar doesn't mean that you feel, but I feel like I'm very, very masculine.
Yeah, I mean, they're not like boy clothes or girl clothes to me. They're just clothes.
Yep, I got you. And Celeste, do you feel like that?
Kind of, but because society has put gender, or they've put feminine and masculine in such a box, and when you go into stores, one side is for women, one side is for men.
Yep.
So a lot of people like to say gender is a social construct and stuff like that. But we have really created boxes in which we see clothes to one gender, when in reality it's not that way. Anyone can wear whatever they want, but because of the social expectation of what we see as gender or masculine or feminine, we have to be in that box. And then when people go outside of that box, when a guy puts on a skirt or a dress, or a girl just wears a suit to a dance or something, they're seen as freaks or something, when it's really it's not that deep.
Yeah. So when I was, for example, in 5th grade, I dressed up, I went in drag to my school. My cousin and I both went in drag, and we were really serious about it. We didn't just throw a dress on and go. We really were. We went the whole distance, and wearing a dress doesn't mean you're a woman, right? I mean, it's not necessarily female, et cetera, but we just went the distance in it. And I thought, okay, I could do this, right? It's not in me to do that, but I could. So what do you think? Do you buy your clothes? Do you go to the men's section or women's section, for example, for you?
I go to the thrift shop.
Yeah.
So that's not really gendered, so it's all together.
Yeah, that's cool.
But usually I do go to the men's section.
Yep.
Because I don't know, their clothes have pockets,
Yeah. So listen. So let me ask you. If I go back to that quote about there with trans people, it's an illness, whatever it is, right? What do you think people are most threatened by? I'm going to start with you, and then we're going to go here and there.
Can we put it back up?
Yeah. And keep in mind that this quote's meant to get people to click on a video and watch it. You know what I mean? I mean, please. But when people say things like this, what do you think they're most? Assume not this guy. This guy says this. I think you can be pretty clear. This guy said this to get you to watch his video. That's pretty clear. But there are a lot of people who think this. Okay, so when people say something like that and really believe it, and I'm not saying he doesn't believe it, but you understand, right? What do you think they're threatened by?
I think they're threatened by something that's different, because something that I've learned is people generally fear things that they don't understand.
Yep.
So do you think these people have taken a class on gender and sexuality? What do they know? What do they actually know aside from the gender binary, which is male and female?
Okay. All right. So let me ask you this: do some people think you're male?
Yes.
And you could go into a men's bathroom and pull it off?
I haven't really wanted or tried to do that, but I feel I could if I didn't speak, maybe.
Yeah. And what do you think would be threatening about that to men? Let's say you did. What do you think would be threatening?
I honestly don't understand me personally, because we're going to the bathroom to go to the bathroom and nothing else.
Yeah.
So my thing is why does it matter to you that me being in the bathroom, not non-binary bathrooms, are
So,
like neutral bathrooms are a thing. So like I don't understand. I think when it's the other case as to when like people who used to be male and now identify as female go into women's bathrooms. Like I think that's where the discussion
Okay, so hang on.
lays.
Could you ever imagine you just like go a step further, right? And I mean, because you do. So you've sort of stopped right here. So earrings and nail polish and a couple rings and stuff. But you could go another step and go into a women's bathroom. And what do you think would be threatening about that for women if you did? For not all women, but some women.
For some people, I feel like they would feel it's an invasion of their personal space. And is it correct? No, because if I identify as a woman, I should be able to use the women's bathroom.
Okay, got you. So if you identify, you walked into a world of, you used should in that. So the moment you use should in that like creates red flags. We can come to that. But but if you identify as a woman, and you say, look, I identify as a woman, and so I want to use a woman's bathroom. And let's say you, just like this, right here, man. You don't go any further. You just are right there. I identify as a woman. I'm going to go use a women's bathroom. What would be threatening about that?
I honestly, don't really understand what would be threatening. I think it's just that people are bending that, societal norm.
Yeah.
That scares them a little bit.
Dude, could a woman in here tell me what, look at Jake. Do you go by Jake or Jacob?
Jake.
Could someone, can you tell me what would be threatening about this guy if you show up in the bathroom with him? Like he shows up in the bathroom in the stall next to you and damn, dude, the fuck?
Well, Jake is my really good friend. But I feel like what threatens me is that
what might threaten
what
you?
might threaten me, would be I know Jake, so I probably wouldn't have a problem with him, but other people might abuse that, might abuse the fact that they think they can go into a bathroom if they identify. How do we know that somebody's identifying as a woman when they go in? You know what I mean? Abusing it.
Okay, so the idea that maybe somebody is trying to get a peek or something like that. But what about Celeste? Because she identifies as cisgendered, and he's actually not going to be attracted to you, but she might be, and she might be trying to get a peek. So, how is that? How would that be? You know what I mean? I don't know. I say get a peek. I don't know what else to say, right? Is there anyone else that could tell me, what would be threatening about him walking into the bathroom? And I'm asking this question because I don't know. You know what I mean? My wife over in Sackett, on the first floor of Sackett, is a multi-gendered bathroom, I think, or whatever. Gender neutral bathroom, is that what they call it? And I don't pay attention. All right. So anyway, she was in there and she walks out and there's some dude standing there and she's like, whoa, all right. And okay, there it is, right? But so what's threat? And I'm asking this out of total curiosity. What's the problem? Does anybody have an answer? Do you have an answer? What you think might be the problem?
People may think that someone could dress up like a female
Yeah.
and just go there for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
So that, I think.
Yeah, I guess. Although I always have this idea that if I'm but if I'm really open about it, I'm probably not there for the wrong reasons. You know what I mean? If you decide to use the bathroom, or you want to use the men's bathroom, you're probably just really using the bathroom because you're just there, right? I don't know. I don't really, I don't get it. This is a test. Can we test it out someday? Dude, let me know. Get back to us. Can you test it out someday? Get back to us.
I live in the Ally House Special Living option, which is a housing option for people of the queer community, and we exclusively have gender-neutral bathrooms. So I will constantly walk into the bathroom and see someone who doesn't identify with my identity or looks a lot different from me.
Yeah.
And and people are like, definitely there's like not competing, but like intersexual attractions there.
Yeah.
Because there are bisexual people, there are gay people, there are plenty of people.
Totally.
And there's never been an issue on my.
Well, so this is the thing, right? A lot of times when we create stories, like we have these stories, it's like people who are, gay in the military or whatever. We come up with the stories and we imagine situations, but the truth is anybody can walk in a bathroom. Like I could walk into any women's bathroom at any moment and just look around. You know what I mean? It's like, do you have something?
Yeah. Well, you said like, can we try this out? Can we try this out? And my thing is, like, trying that out could potentially be dangerous.
Could be what?
Potentially dangerous.
Yeah, exactly.
Just because,
not for you
No.
so much, but for Jake for sure.
I mean,
But,
my
yeah.
thing is like trans people are like going through, or there have been like 19 murders of like trans people. So like trans people are being killed or murdered at like a very high rate in this country because of like transphobia and lack of like ignorance.
Dude, totally.
So like that would be potentially dangerous. So I don't know.
No, listen. There are far more murders than that, by the way, and not only in the U.S. but in other countries. At the same time, when people have the opportunity. It's funny how people are very quickly get remarkably comfortable with all of the issues. Just like here, just having the three of you sit here and talk makes a lot of people, some people uncomfortable, but many other people comfortable because we don't talk about these issues, right? We just don't put it out there. And you, bro, it's like, yeah, at first I'm like, whoa, the dude I didn't, but someone might see you and feel immediately some kind of way. But after like sitting next to you in class for 2 classes, suddenly it's like, oh, all right, cool, it's great, got it, lovely, no problem. You know what I mean? And I think that's part of what I don't really understand what the issues are in a larger sense. Final comment. Do you have a final comment?
Yeah, I think like the one way we as like a society can fix it is by like giving like the queer community representation because as you said, like if you sit next to someone and realize like they're a person, like regardless of gender or sexuality, you're gonna be like, oh, like they're not threatening, they're not trying to hurt me. So like being represented in media, in like movies and TV shows and stuff like that, like, and just being able to visibly see like
Totally.
an accurate representation as well.
Yeah, totally. And then we get a chance to question ourselves. Like for you, I look at you, for example, right? So my first question would be, okay, do you identify as a boy or a girl, male, female? And then like, in the beginning, when I don't spend much time around these issues, that might be frustrating to me, right? It's like, wait, it's like I'm going to demand that you either be one or be the other because I don't want to be in a space of confusion. But after a while, it becomes like, whatever, I can be in a space of confusion, and maybe I'll just, instead of he or she, it'll just be they. I'll just say they. And that's good enough, and I'll get comfortable saying they. And it's fine, but we often don't have the opportunity to do that, and then we somehow make it somebody else's issue instead of just saying, whatever, I can just be in the gray area. It's okay. Maybe I'll be in the gray area, and I'll live in this space where, we could all be in that. Yo. Thanks. Yeah. Awesome, man. I appreciate y'all coming up. Hey, and you were, I kind of called you up, but you're cool with that.
Oh,
I
yeah.
assume you are, because you're the head of the organization on campus. So
I thought you were asking to
wait, I just want you to say this to the class so no one calls me out on it. You know what I mean?
I just thought you're asking for people who identified that way.
Yeah, exactly.
So then I was like, well, that's not my place because I'm a cis woman, so I didn't want to talk on it.
And I was going to actually send you an email yesterday and say, hey, I'm doing this thing tomorrow. Like I sent an email to Jake. I was going to send one to you, and then I just thought, no, whatever. We'll just see in class because I know you're out because you said you were out, and I knew you were part of the organization. So cool. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Hey, Okay, so here, I want to ask another question. Bro, anybody getting crazy on the stream? Anybody uncomfortable?
I'm sure. Well, I just wanted to ask, like, to say what was the point of asking, like, to talk about this was definitely to say, like, just whatever, like, gender, whatever. But I don't think this conversation's gone far enough about trans people.
Yeah.
Like, we talked about how, I believe you said that Jake would have a worse time or more of an issue going to bathrooms that don't identify with his gender.
Yeah, because I just think because men are, I think on average, I think that men are more threatened by sexuality issues, and men, because of just testosterone stuff, I don't know, the threat can just come out in some kind of reaction against. And I don't know what the threat is. I don't know why men feel threatened by other men who are not straight, because that's another thing that I never really understood, because, dude, if I'm around a bunch of gay men and I'm not gay, what's the threat? Like, I mean, if I'm not going to be gay,
We'll turn
then
you gay.
I don't understand. So it's another thing. I don't...
And then we're not really going to talk about too much, but for people who are wondering why are we even talking about queer issues, gay marriage has been legalized, all of that stuff, there's so much oppression that still happens against LGBT people that we have to talk about these things. And for instance, people going to the bathrooms in other states, some of those people literally can be put into jail because they went to the bathroom in which they identify in, even if they look like the gender in which they recognize themselves as. So this isn't just an issue where it's gone away because in 2013 or 14 the Supreme Court said that yes, gay people can get married. This is still an issue.
Yeah, no, it's a huge... We still have... There are many ways in which we've come a certain distance, but we've come a certain distance in our ideas, but not like... So here, let's do this one. So in 1977, I was a junior in high school, or maybe, I don't know, senior in high school. 13% of the U.S. agreed with the statement that being gay or lesbian is something you're born with, okay? 13%. What's the percentage in 2019, today? What's the percentage? Something you're born with. Well, hang on. Can we get a couple more people who identify as gay or lesbian? I want to actually ask you some questions about this. I need a couple more volunteers who haven't been up here yet. Someone who's gay or lesbian. Yo. And
We got one in the front.
anybody else? Who else wants to? Dude, you're on? Anyone else want to join the party? Yo. All right, man. 3 people, 3 microphones. You haven't been up here, right?
Yeah, not yet.
Dude, all right. Well, welcome out in Social 119. All right. Are you...
I'm actually by a couple of
Bye? Dude, even better. Bye is great. You've been up here. Yeah. All right, so you're... Wait, hang on. There you are. All right, what do you think the answer is? What percentage in 2019? Who think that being gay or lesbian, right? Go or bi, it's fine, is actually something you're born with.
I mean, I would imagine and hope it's the majority by now. I would have, if I guess a number, I guess like 90, I suppose.
90?
Yeah.
Yep. What do you think?
I'd say between 50 and 60.
Between 50 and 60?
I agree with that.
50 and 60?
Yep.
So the answer is 49, right?
Great.
So the question I have is, what are the other 51% thinking? Like if you're not born... So wait, when did you come out to yourself?
It's probably,
Wait, talking to my...
probably like 14 or 15.
14 or 15?
Yeah.
And... What pronouns are you rocking with?
I don't really care.
Yeah?
Yeah. I mean, I have a lot of male friends, so like, I don't give a shit if you call me bro or whatever. But like,
They,
I'm obviously
bro,
a female.
You identify
I mean,
as
I'm a
cis female?
female, yeah.
Uh-huh.
But I don't really give a shit what you call me.
Okay, but you're bending as well. You're like,
Yeah.
you know. Okay, so when did you first?
I was probably like
Yeah, like junior high, like 7th
Okay.
grade. 8th
And
grade.
when did you first have the idea that, hey, I kind of might?
Last October.
Last October?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I'm from Georgia, so like I didn't even
Oh,
know
dude.
that bisexuality existed until like last year.
Yeah. Wait, how are you a freshman?
I'm a sophomore.
You're a sophomore? Okay, so so you were up here at Penn State?
Yes.
And you're like, oh, very cool, man. Sometimes you got to bust out of Georgia, you know what I mean? Yeah. And how about you?
I had the idea that I was gay when I was like 14, but
Yeah.
then fully accepted that when I was like 18.
Okay, so what are the other 51% thinking? What do you think they're thinking? That you are, wait, first off, did you choose? Are you choosing, or are you like?
No. I'm one of 5, and my older brother is also gay.
Yeah.
And it's very clear that he didn't choose, even like pictures from when he was younger. And
Like,
same
what are
with
those
me.
pictures?
Yeah, we had like, you should see it. It's fucking
Yeah. What are your
crazy.
pictures? When you say I should see your pictures, what do you mean?
Like I just don't like, I never wore like female clothes when I was younger.
Yeah.
I was always,
If they tried to put you in a dress, would you?
I didn't like that shit.
Yeah, you would.
I
you would
only like,
respond.
only for like, unless I was forced.
Yeah.
Like church.
Hold the mic close. Yeah.
Church, yeah.
Yeah. In Georgia, you can't. No one. Well, so what do you think the other 51% are thinking?
It's a choice.
Well, I think some people obviously think it's a choice. That's what they think. Like maybe
So in your case, they would think that you are making the choice to be
Yeah.
attracted to both males and men and women.
a lot of people from my high school think that I'm just experimenting and that I'm not actually attracted to women because they were like, you've only dated men. Like in high school, I was just dating men. And so they don't really, like, I don't feel valid because you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but how do you know you're not just experimenting?
It's a thought that's always been in my head. Like I knew that I was always attracted to women. But
How did you know that?
I just found myself looking at women the same way I looked at men. And, I guess things like that. Like I said, I didn't know that you could be bisexual, and I knew that I was attracted to men. You know what I'm saying?
I got you. Yep. So you knew that, but then suddenly you start looking at women in a similar way, and you're going, wait a minute, hang on, maybe I can be on both teams, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you, man? What do you think the other 51% are thinking?
I guess some of them are probably thinking what like 14-year-old me thought. That it was still kind of a choice. Because when I was 14, I kind of realized I was gay, but
What do you mean you realized?
I discovered that I was gay. I found I was attracted more to men than women. I was never attracted to a woman, but then I found like a man that I thought was sexy. So
And when you say you thought he was sexy, I'm not trying to get. I'm actually trying to go what happened that you, because people are still going to listen to you and be like, yeah, but 51% of the population, in fact, is still going to be like, I don't really know about that. What do you mean? So tell the 51% of the population, how do you know definitively that you're not choosing this, that in fact this is something in you?
because when I was like 14, trying to discover if I was gay or not, I remember distinctively making the choice to be straight because I thought being gay was a bad thing. So for a couple of years, I tried being a straight man, and it didn't work.
What'd you do?
It didn't feel right. I dated girls, and I had sexual experiences with other women, and it wasn't the same as then when I did find a man.
And then it just felt like,
Yeah.
like somehow it just, things started to click. Would you, similar or like, again, I want to just hear what you would say to the 51%, because a majority of the population is thinking that, hey, the three of you are just, yeah, it's a phase you're going through, or you're choosing, or whatever, and like, I'm just trying to, bro, and you could add something to this too if you feel inclined, but do you have anything to add? What would you say to the 51%? Besides the fact that your brother's gay. Come on, it's 2 out of 5. Are you kidding me? It's clearly genetic.
Yeah, I don't know, like, it's just hard, like, especially like now, like just like the older population, like even with my grandparents, or I'm sure with your guys, like anybody's grandparents who is coming out, like, I mean, telling your parents is one thing, like they'll love you unconditionally, but like, I don't know, like for a grandparent who is only raised and born in a certain
Okay, but listen.
situation.
Okay, so listen though. How do you know definitively that you are not choosing to not be straight?
You just,
That's a double negative, right? How do you? That's like I'm just
know.
preparing you for the quiz questions. So how do you know definitively that? Look, I'm not choosing this. This is who I am.
I don't know, you just know. I don't know. I mean,
This is like the heterosexual questionnaire, right? Like how for people who are straight, how do you know you're straight? Especially if you've never had sex with someone of the same sex. How do you know? Because you might, and the fireworks might all go off, and you'd be like, "Oh damn, I've been missing this my whole life." You know what I mean? Like this is the real deal, right? Like you were dating some girls, and suddenly the fireworks went like, wait, all right, so how do we know that? So those of you who are straight, how do you know if you've never tried? Like, really? So that's really the question, right? So you would say, I just know.
yeah,
Just like I know,
yeah.
right? I didn't have to question it. Like when I was dating, when I was 14, 15, and I had a girlfriend, it was not there was no question about the fact that she was my girlfriend. I was a boy. I was straight. I was attracted to her. It was all happening. Everything was functioning really well. It was good. There was no question at all. And so what the three of you are saying is like, yeah, but for us, we were questioning stuff. And it's like, yeah. All right. Did you add anything to that? You don't have to.
I don't know. I think just like how you were saying that we were like questioning things. It's not so much like we were born questioning things, like we weren't born gay and born questioning them.
Yeah.
It's that we were, I think someone else said at the last group, that we were kind of put in these situations where we assume that it's only like a man and a woman, like we only had one option. And then when we discovered those other options, we then questioned, maybe
It's
those
like
do feel better, and then we try them, and then they
Yeah,
are.
exactly. Like you tried, like you feel something, man. You feel something, you're like, we know what the feeling is, right? I mean, most of us do. You know what that certain feeling is. So it's like, okay, it's great. All right. Awesome. Thanks. Thanks. Thanks, man. You can just do that. Dude, what would you add to that? How did you know, by the way? But I don't want details, my friend.
When Sam outed me, no. It did happen, though. So to make a long story short, when I was taking this class, the first day of class, I came to the front of the room after class because I forgot something, and just Sam was still here, so I talked to him. And I was like, yeah, I'm gay, whatever. And halfway through the semester, we're doing an activity, and he just, in front of everyone, was like, oh, you're gay, right? It's like, well, I'm out now. Thank you.
But you weren't out.
I wasn't out then.
Yeah.
But I was at that moment.
Did your parents ever watch that video? But they knew you were gay, right?
They knew because we had a long conversation, many months of conversations about that.
Yeah.
But I just, with the question that you have up here, what percentage in 2019, for people who think that you were born gay or female,
Yeah.
It's interesting because on the stream I'm getting bombarded by people asking me to continuously answer the question, why is there not a gay gene?
Why is there not what?
A gay gene.
Oh, a gay gene.
Yes.
Why would there be a gay gene?
But the thing is, like, I would like to have asked these people who are up here, do they believe that is something that they are born with? Because I, as a gay person, don't think that I was born one way or the other. And I also don't think that sexuality is some binary thing that you're either gay, you're straight, or you're a lesbian, or whatever you identify as can fluidly change, because it's just like what we were talking about with attraction. Like, we aren't just attracted to people because we are biologically driven to be attracted to that person. We are society is pushing us towards one way or another. How do I explain the fact that I grew up in a Christian church and I worked at a church, but yet I was still gay? Like, I can't explain these things. I just know that sexuality is way too fluid and we don't understand enough about it for the fact that there is no gay gene. And
there may be a gene that predicts a certain, for some people, certain things. Maybe we'll find one day, but it's like Jake, you might one day just look in a mirror and say, okay, you know what, I'm kind of done, whatever. I'm going to just now I'm done with the earrings and the polish and whatever. I'm going to just start lifting weight. I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to buff up and I'm going to be a macho dude. You know what I mean? Like, whatever. And I'm going to date women. Probably not likely, but, you know, whatever. Like, it could. But that's the fluidity of it.
And I could start wearing makeup for the first time, because my boyfriend, for instance, loves makeup, and he wants to get more involved in makeup, and he watches YouTube for like all the different people who do that. And I'm not interested in it, but it doesn't mean that I'm any less gay or he's even more gay or any, like, there's just, it's not like that.
Yep. Yeah, I'm with you, man.
I think that 50% of people, or almost 50% of people, saying that being gay or lesbian is something that you're born with, I think you have to talk to the individual specifically. And a lot of what happens is your experiences that you have are what guide you to whatever you decide to identify as.
Yeah, and so there are a lot of people in this class. For example, you have zero intention of being lesbian, gay, or bi, or having any experiences. And for many of you, you will. At some point, you just will. Maybe it'll be a single person that you just feel this incredible connection with, and then you'll have this 1-year fling, or a 6-week fling, or a 5-year fling, and then that'll be the end of it. I know at my age, I know lots of people who are with men, and then they get tired of men, and so they're with women, and they're tired of women, and they're men, and it's just back and forth, and it's like, it's all good, man. You know what I need, though? I need someone who's really Christian and someone who's really Muslim. We're going to do I want to do a quick case study here, really fast. So I need someone who's Muslim and someone who's Christian. We got, who wants to volunteer? Dude, Christian? I need someone who's Muslim.
That one?
Yeah.
Go on that side.
Yeah. Wait, I need a Muslim. You don't have to. You're just going to help us out with something. I need someone who's Muslim. Can I just get any Muslim? Dude. Okay. The class Muslim, man. Come on, bro. Ali. And wait, and what's your name again? Dominic. You can have a seat right there, man. You have a seat. Okay, so here's what I want you to do. I want the two of you to explain what's the problem here, okay? You for Muslims and you for Christians. Here. Okay, got it? We're gonna go through some things. I'm gonna walk you through some slides, and then the two of you can go through. Wait, by the way, actually, I want to do this. Do you know what the percentage of Americans who are LGBT? Do you have any idea? What would you say?
2%.
2%?
2%.
Do you have any idea?
30.
30? Yeah. So, well,
like 30%.
30%. Yeah, not 30 people. Dude, so listen, man. The average answer when we ask Americans most recently is 23.6. The average answer. The answer is about 4 to 4.5. So 23.6, by the way, would be more than this entire front section of class. So when we ask people just like that, dude, by the way, I just want to point something out. 30% would be that in this entire section over here, front and back. That's 30% of the class. That's a lot of queer people in here, my friend.
If it was 25%, if you go a little lower, that means if it's you, your one sibling, and your two parents, that means one of you has to be gay. If that would be
so, in 40%, you know,
right, it was a mistake. I got it.
No, dude. That not only is it a mistake, but here's the problem. But it segues into the next conversation. So here,
And it's not a mistake, it's just what everyone, that's the average of what people believe.
That's the average of what people believe. Which means people, no wonder people think the gays and lesbians are taking over. This is from the Bible, my friend. Bro, this is the Corinthians, that's the book in the New Testament, all right? So read this. Got it? So this is the Bible. You're familiar with this, right? You're a Christian, dude? Are you a real Christian or like?
I'm a very serious Christian.
Oh, seriously?
I'm actually the social leader of a Christian group on campus.
Oh, damn, dog. All right, so you know all about this, right? All right. Got it? So you know all of the ways in which you're going to go to hell. So let's
Wait,
go.
though.
Well,
I mean, okay, so like one thing though is like thou shalt not judge, and that's also very important in the Bible.
okay,
So like,
hang on. I got that. Okay, here's the deal, right? Fornication, sex outside of marriage. So how many of you are fornicators in here? Just raise your hands. High and proud, right? Dude, are you a fornicator? Y'all good? You alright? Alright, man. Dude, here we go. Worshiping objects. So that includes that includes the new iPhone 11 that just came out. That includes fame.
Money.
That includes money. Money, friends. Yo, money. How many of you are going to hell simply because you worship money? How many of you are in a major because you're after money? Dude, money? You going to hell for that too? Probably. All right, so you got two. How about sex outside of one's own marriage? Half of you will commit adultery in here. So I'm just telling you, that's how it is, my friend. Desiring something that belongs to somebody else, right? Like these hip shoes that I'm wearing. I know, Ali, I know you were looking at those, man. Going like, damn. All right, so that includes the new iPhone 11 that just came out. So there we got a lot of, okay, verbally reviling, verbally abusing. So if you go to the protest of these two speakers tomorrow night and you're protesting and abusing them, that's actually a ticket into hell. So forget about using a bribe to get, how many of you have parents that are going to hell because they bribe you to get good grades and they offer things to you if you get good grades? Okay, so there you go, right? Or how about drunkenness, right? We got to go there. And thievery, that means if someone gives you the wrong change and you don't give it back to them, you just keep it, that's going to hell. And then sodomy, any kind of sex that's not intercourse. I mean, this is, dude. Dude, all I'm going to say is, when you get to a certain age, you just dream of sodomy. You know what I mean? And that's any kind of sex. That means, by the way, fellatio. You know what fellatio is? Bro, you know what fellatio is, right? Bro, you know? Fellatio, cunnilingus, all of that. That's sodomy, my friends. So, all of you men, yo, the men who have girlfriends, who are straight men who have girlfriends, and you're trying to get your girlfriends to participate in sodomy, you're just leading them into a life of hell. So, homosexuality, of course. So and then here we go, Muslims, right? So it's clear that homosexuality is not acceptable in Islam. That's pretty clear. But here are all the other major sins in Islam for which you can spend eternity in hell. All of these, right? Sodomy's back up there, my friends. So you Muslims don't get away from that. Fornication, pointing a weapon at a Muslim brother. We talked about that last class. That's going to be a real problem for ISIS. Ungratefulness. Like Muslims have actually raised the bar, just being ungrateful, right? So your parents who are bribing you, if you're ungrateful because you think they should give you more money, that would be a problem. Not performing the prayer. Dude, do you pray 5 times a day?
I try.
Do you try? It will not keep you out of hell, my friend. Okay, so disbelieving fate. These are the major sins in Islam. So the question is, what's the problem with Christians and Muslims that they can't that they talk about homosexuality far more than they talk about something else. Why do they do that? Just why? That's just the question. Why do they talk? Why is it that I have, even Gary will talk about homosexuality, and Gary actually is awesome because Gary actually talks about all those in Corinthians, Gary does. But why is it that so many Christians have a hard time talking about all of the sins and instead focus on the one? And Muslims. Why do they focus on that one and not the others more often?
I think maybe
this isn't a trick question, by the way. I'm actually, tell me why you think that's the case.
I think it's because some of them are easier to define than others and easier to enforce.
Some are easier to what?
Define and enforce. What is being ungrateful? What's the difference between it's hard to say somebody's being ungrateful versus they just don't like what they want and they're trying to improve it,
So something like very clear, like homosexuality, it's really easy to identify and you do it and this is it. And so it's very black and white. Mm-hmm. What do you think? What is it in the Christian world?
Yeah, so I was also raised Catholic. So
that for many Christians think you're going to hell just for
I
that.
know, right? So I think it also is just because it's something I almost feel that is becoming, I guess, more popular because it's more out in the media more. And so then they're attacking that too. But I also agree with what you're saying too. It's you know when somebody's committing that sin as opposed to you don't know what somebody's doing if they're
in the
masturbating or whatever in private. You don't know that.
Okay, I got you. So part of this is simply a reaction to, for example, hang on one second. So, for example, Penn State students are, people are really open about how happy they are to be drunkards, so to speak, right? But nobody comes out and starts talking openly about all the sodomy they're committing. But people will, people in the queer community might come out and talk about that. So it just makes it easier for people to talk about. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
I just, I'm sure a lot of people saw that 1 Corinthians verse and were a little triggered by it. But
yeah, I don't necessarily think the verse means what it means.
Okay.
I don't mean that, but I think people use it in that way. And because they use it in that way, I'm all right, let's look at this. But yeah.
But you can't take it out of context.
Yeah, I got you. Yep. So the verse doesn't mean, what does the verse mean? What would you say?
I mean, so that's in a letter that Paul wrote to Corinth where there was a lot of, it was a hub for sin and sexual immorality and stuff like that. But the following verse is, some of you were once like that, but you were cleansed.
Yeah, you were cleansed. Right, so the idea is to go find a place to go to and realize the ways of your sinning and so on and move forward, right?
Not necessarily. It's between you and God.
Yeah, I got you. But so the problem is, right, the problem that I think the question is, why is it that even if it's between me and God, and it's between him and God, or you and God, or whatever, right? Why is it that it's so much easier for me to point a finger at some people on some sins, and even though I got 3 coming back at me, it's why is it that I can point at some sins and not the others, right? Why is that? That's just the question, right? Why?
I think it does go back to what
Ali.
Both of you were saying, sin is sin, and I'm not one to say one is greater than the other.
That's the ideal space to be in, but many people are.
We still got a minute left.
Yo, dude.
I don't know what y'all are getting up for.
All right. Listen, listen, man. Go read your Quran and read your Bible. Do your thing and pray. I don't know. Stop sinning. Stop committing sodomy. How about that? All right. See you all.